I'm Candace Clippard, Executive Director at Day 7, and we're so glad you've joined us for the 2020 Virtual Self-Care Summit. At Day 7, we're committed to providing discounted and wellness self-care resources to those working in helping professions, both nonprofit staff and ministry staff. Far too often, it's these individuals that are so busy caring for our community that they don't often have the opportunity to receive the care that they also need to continue their work from a place of health and thriving. So this year we created this event to be both a resource to the community and also as a fundraiser to cover and help cover the ongoing needs of Day 7's work. And we're so thankful that you have chosen to be a part of it. I'd like to introduce you now to comedian Tracy DeGraff for her session titled Laugh Anyway, How Humor Relieves Stress. Tracy joins us from Chicago and is referred to as one of Chicago's best clean female comedians and speakers. Tracy has made a name for herself with her one-woman comedy show called Life Happens, Laugh Anyway. Rebellious Magazine said Tracy has the presence of a motivational speaker and the uplifting message of a preacher. Her everyday experiences resonate with fans who can be seen nodding along with punchline after punchline. DeGraff pulls her material from her experiences as a wife, mother of 5 sons, and being a middle-aged woman. DeGraff is the author of Laugh Anyway, Mom, and was trained for comedy at the Second City in Chicago. She is happily married to her husband, Ron, aka Muffin, since 1989, and they live in Chicago area with their remaining mini muffins. She's a member of the Christian Comedian Association, travels nationwide, and we're so glad to have you virtually today. Tracy, thank you so much.
And thanks for inviting me to be a part of this. I am going to have full disclosure and authenticity. As she said, this is not my bag. This is not my gig. This is not what I do. I would much rather stand up alone on a stage in front of 1,000 people with the burden of making them laugh squarely sitting on my shoulders alone than do anything to do with technology. So here I am facing my fears with COVID and expecting all of your smiling faces to just have a lot of grace with me. And we're going to have fun. We're going to have fun. So here, I'm going to tell you what my goal is for this hour. Okay, so I think, Penny, what this means is like I agree or whatever, right? Okay, so I like that. If you guys do that, like if I say something funny, I'm not, that'll be great. So for the next hour, this is what I want you to leave with. So let's start with the end, right? After we're done, after you turn off the computer and you go back to whatever it is that you were doing today, I want you to leave with a plan in your hand to increase the amount of times that you laugh out loud every single day, yourself. Because I wanted to know what you did as an occupation, because I myself have worked with people over yes, I raised 5 human beings. That's no joke. That's a real thing. So I did that. But during the course of my adult life, I've also worked on staff with a church. So I've been in that role, like that pastoral role. Working with people is hard. People can drain you. Life throws you a curveball, all the time. So I want you to leave here with a plan in your hand to improve your life by looking intentionally for things that you can laugh about every single day. So that's a challenge, but we can do it. So basically, I came up with a term. I want to make you a humor consumer. You are going to consume some humor. That's basically it. And I even said to my husband, I said, I could sum up this talk with one sentence. Just go find some humor and consume it. And he said, well, that's funny. They're a humor consumer. I'm like, okay. So we have a survey question. This is the only technical thing that we're doing today. And that is we're going to ask you a survey question. And the question, you'll see it there on your screen. It's been reported that the average 4-year-old laughs out loud about 300 times a day. How many times a day do you think the average 40-year-old laughs out loud per day? Ooh, 27, 4, all right. Oh, has everybody voted? How do I know when they're all done?
We've got a little over half of them in.
Isn't that interesting how the
They all
percentage?
put their own answer down there. They think the answer's 50.
Okay. Well, the correct answer is 4. That is the correct answer. Now, how do I make that go away? Stop.
That's what people guessed there.
Yeah, so 4, 46%, 12 of you said 4, and 10 of you said 27. So you all picked the lower numbers. And, you know, Candace and I were kind of going over that survey and the poll results and stuff before we started today. And she said she was curious to know what the answer was. And I said, well, I think that you can kind of guess even without knowing, because if you just know human behavior, right? So we think about little 4-year-olds. Why are 4-year-olds so entertained by life? Why can a child walk through life and be giddy about a little bug crawling across a leaf, or, you know, something that the dog did? Or why do we laugh at children? And then why is it when we're in our 40s, you know, life has beat us up a little bit, and all of a sudden we're taking everything so seriously, and, you know, we're not sure if we can find a way to laugh. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to try to find a way to laugh. I did a little bit of research on laughter, and I found an American author named Norman Cousins. It go like this, if any of you are familiar with Norman Cousins. Never heard of him? He passed away, but he was an American author and journalist, and he also had a very debilitating and painful connective tissue disorder disease. And he did his own research. They couldn't find anything to help him with the pain, and it was crippling and debilitating, and he lived in daily pain. If any of you have had physical pain every day, you know that that can be quite depressing. It can lead to a lot of bad things. So he did this thing, and he has a quote here. He says, "Hearty laughter is a good way to jog internally without having to go outdoors," which I'm all in favor of that. But he did a study, his own self-study. He found that if he could find something to make him laugh out loud for 10 minutes, that would give him 2 hours of pain relief. Now think about that. If you can make yourself laugh out loud for 10 minutes, you could have your own little natural analgesic. You know, if you're struggling with arthritis or some other kind of chronic pain disorder, his was called, I wrote it down, ankylosing spondylitis. It's basically like having severe arthritis. And he wrote a book, if you're interested in that kind of a thing. The name of his book is The Anatomy of an Illness as Perceived by the Patient. So what he did was he would watch funny TV, funny movies and TV, and he would use laughter just to soothe his brain. Here's what I know. As a mom of 5 boys, I've learned this, and even when I was younger, I learned it. When you are laughing, it is impossible for you to think about your problems. Think about the last time that something made you really laugh hard. Were you able to think about any stress in your life at all? It's impossible. It's an impossibility, because this is the way that I describe it to my audience when I'm doing a show. So I make them laugh for an hour or whatever. And I do a lot of shows in churches, and I also do shows in hospitals because I'm a breast cancer survivor. So when the audience is all laughing, they're not thinking about their financial worries. They're not thinking about their illnesses. They're not worried about their kids, or, you know, taking care of aging parents or any of that stuff, because their brain went into a spontaneous combustion. It just went poof. They didn't control it. A comedian cannot force the laugh. It just has to come. It just has to come. Now, you can fake a laugh, but you can only fake it for so long. You're not going to fake it for an hour, you know, or an hour and a half. So if I'm up there and I'm doing my show is 90 minutes, and I'm looking around the audience and I'm watching different groups of people, and they're all laughing at different times or whatever, I know that I've given them the gift of an opportunity to have relief right here. And then your brain just blows all these beautiful natural chemicals and endorphins to coat your brain. And that's where the stress relief comes from, because you just need a break, right? Don't you sometimes, from the stress of dealing with life and dealing with people, you just need a time out? And maybe another metaphor would be like a whale. You know how whales can go through the ocean for quite a long time, but every once in a while they've got to come up, right, to get some air. They've got to come up for a break. They've got to come up for that blowhole to release. So when you're laughing, it is impossible to think about your problems. All people love to laugh out loud, don't they? Don't you love it? All people, the people that you work with, love to laugh out loud. The people that you meet randomly at a Starbucks love to laugh out loud. People online love to laugh out loud. I get this all the time when I meet people who don't know me as a comedian, right? Because I'm not like super famous, because here I am on Zoom, right? I'm here. But when people meet me out there and they find out that I'm a comedian, so they're meeting me in a context that's not funny. And I'm going to give you an example. Catherine, who's on this call, Catherine, give them a wave, Catherine. I don't know if she can see me or hear me because she's not responding. But Catherine, on Catherine's iPad, that's my best friend. And you could just wave like this. Oh, she's saying a hi. Oh, 1 second for everybody. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a story about Catherine. We're best friends, and she lives down the street. She asked me to take her to the oral surgeon so that she could get her wisdom teeth pulled out. So we go to the oral surgeon, and somehow, because around here, sometimes people will recognize me because I'm in the paper for different things or whatever. Somehow he figured out that I was a stand-up comedian, and I don't remember how that happened. But we were not there at the oral surgery office for stand-up comedy. We were there to take care of Catherine. I was there as her support system. I was there to hear from him, what's the post-op situation, because she's over in the corner going, blah, 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 and she was counting unicorns, you know, like she was doped up. So he's in the room, the procedure's over. He finds out that I'm a comedian. He says, oh, you're a comedian, make me laugh. And I was like, no, I'm not going to make you laugh. I just want to get the instructions for my friend. So I'm trying to brush it off, like, and say, no, you know, like I'm too embarrassed or I'm shy. And he just kept pushing me. It was almost like he was flirting with me. And I was like, what are we doing here? You know, because no means no, darn it. I'm going to start my own Me Too movement. You know, me too. I don't tell jokes for free. You got 20 bucks, I'll make you laugh. But no money, no funny. So that's what I get sometimes when I'm out there, because people want to laugh, and they want to laugh no matter what the situation is. Honestly, that guy should have been paying attention, right, to his job. And I was really ticked, right? Catherine, she was almost embarrassed for both of us, because I was ticked that this guy was not taking this seriously. And she ended up getting a dry socket after all of that. So she had a lot of pain because things just went wrong and bad. Okay, so here's a disclaimer. This disclaimer goes for the rest of our little session. You know, normally what I do is stand-up comedy. So I do a joke. It has a structure to it. It has a premise and a setup and a punchline and an act out, and that's how we do it. And I manage the energy of the room, you know, for an hour and a half, and that's how I roll. This is so different from that. I'm not here to make you laugh. I'm here to show you the value of laughter, and so that you can then close this computer, or close your phone, or close your iPad, and you can go out there and become a humor consumer. So I'm not here right now to make you laugh. I'm almost like saying that for myself, because it's so anti what I normally do. The pressure is there to make people laugh. It's kind of like that old saying, you know, give a man a fish, he eats for a day, right? But teach a man to fish, and he buys a boat and gets a divorce. That was a joke. See, I got you. See how brave I was? I tried it anyway, even though I can't hear you. I could just see, right? This is great. Okay, so we're gonna go through some blocks. I decided to block this up into little segments because I felt like you guys listening to me for an hour and us not being able to really engage in conversation would get really dull for everybody. So we're gonna go through the who, what, when, where, why, and how of how to become more of a humor consumer. So I'm going to tell you a little quick story. It wasn't my idea to become a comedian. That was someone else's idea. I always wanted to be a writer. So from the time I was a little girl, 12 years old, I was like, I'm going to be a writer. And then I did everything that one would do to become that. I wrote for the junior high paper, wrote for the high school paper. I got a degree in journalism. I graduated in 1988 with my diploma. I was like, I'm going to be a writer. Then I met my husband, Ron, who Candace told you I call him Muffin. And Muffin and I got real busy. And in the first 11 years of our marriage, we had those 5 baby boys. I'm going to tell you something. I couldn't be a writer. I had one brain cell and it was hiding deep inside my head. I could barely talk. I couldn't formulate a sentence to be a writer. I had to put my writing career on the back burner for 20 years. So it wasn't until I was 40 that I started to write. And that's when I wrote my book, Laugh Anyway, Mom, which one of you is going to get a signed copy of this. And it's the stories of our 5 boys and how we survived them being really stupid. So when I was 22 and I had that diploma, I had the desire, right, to be a writer, but I had nothing to say, 0 things. I knew nothing. But you fast forward 20 years and now I'm 40 and mom of 5 boys. I got something to say, and by golly, you're going to sit down and you're going to listen. That's how I became a writer. So I wrote the book first. And then somebody in the publishing world read the manuscript and he said, hey, you should do stand-up comedy because you have the book. If you could bring the book to the stage, that would be something that you could really work with. And so that's when I started taking classes at the Second City in Chicago. Horrified. I was middle 40s. And I was taking a class at Second City with boys I could have given birth to. And the class was on a Sunday and I looked cute. I had my cute little church clothes on. I had on like matching boots and a little skirt and a blazer. Walked into a class with these boys that hadn't been out of bed yet or hadn't been to bed. They looked like they just rolled out of bed. So that's my little story of how I got into comedy. The first 4 years of comedy, I just did open mics around the city and things like that. I was never a fan of comedy. I didn't follow comedians. I didn't go to comedy shows. I didn't have time for any of that. I was raising 5 children. I was just surviving from day to day, from meal to meal, from laundry load, to laundry load. I moved next door to Catherine when my youngest was only a few months old. So here comes this family of 7. And she used to feel sorry for me before we got to know each other because she said I looked like the little old woman who lived in a shoe and had so many kids she didn't know what to do because they were just kids. There were boys everywhere. So anyway, that is that was my introduction to comedy. And the audience will tell you, when you're a comedian, the audience will tell you everything. So your feedback comes from the audience. So when a comedian stands up and tells a joke, you tell the joke and it's almost like jumping out of an airplane. You're not sure if you have a parachute or not. If the chute opens, the laughter comes, we're all safe, everything's okay. If the laughter doesn't come, the chute is either not there or it's tangled up, So basically, with humor and with comedy, if the audience laughs, that's comedy. That's good for them. Not everybody has the same sense of humor. Can we agree with that? That is a fact. And so I'm going to share with you some ways that you can kind of identify what makes you laugh, because this is a self-care conference. We're going to be taking care of you, so you can expect to laugh out loud more than you do currently. Okay, so in our survey example, we talked about 40-year-olds, and that was the group that didn't laugh very often. 4 times a day possibly is all that they're getting. So if that's you, if you're in that group and you're maybe laughing 4 times a day, I would challenge you to set a goal for yourself to try to laugh twice as much as that. So try to laugh 8 times a day and be intentional about it. And who needs the laughter? When you're in your 40s, think about it. So when you're a little kid, obviously you have no burdens. Life is your oyster shell. You're just figuring everything out. You become a teenager, you're too busy rolling your eyes to laugh about things. So you're in hormonal, chaos. You become a young adult, you're figuring out who you are, right? In your 20s and in your 30s, you're getting your career going and your children are being raised. I'm not saying that those groups of people don't need laughter, they do. But for our purpose today, let's just think about people who are over 40. If they're 40 and up, what is a 40 and up person going through? They're in the season of life where maybe the children are, either teenagers or young adults. So in my case as a mom, I had poured a lot of my identity into being a mom by force. That's what I was. I was mom to Nate, Luke, Joel, Adam, and Caleb. And my season lasted a lot longer than a lot of moms because I kept having kids. But that was just, my story. So you're raising teens. When we had all teenagers or preteens in our house, and there was a period of time where that was the case, I used to call my house a testosterone because there was so much testosterone dripping from the walls of my house. If you gals came over to my house back then, you'd be going home with a goatee whether you want one or not, because it was just everywhere. I used to joke and say, if we buy anything for our house, it has to be made out of concrete or Nerf, because otherwise it's going to get destroyed. And it was like that for probably a good solid decade plus a few years, for sure. So one of the things that I used to do to give myself comic relief, now remember, this was way before I ever wrote the book. My dream was on the back burner so far back, my writing dream, I didn't even remember that I had a dream, right? So I'm just in the throes of raising kids. But one thing that I would do to give myself a break was wait by the door for Muffin to come home from work with my purse on my shoulder and my shoes on, keys in hand. And when he would come in, I would go out and I would go to the grocery store, because that's all we did was cook food and eat and do laundry and all that. But when I got to the grocery store, I would go right to the funny cards, where all the Hallmark cards were and the shoebox cards and all that. And I would read every single funny card in the store. And if I picked up a card and it made me laugh out loud right there in that grocery store, I'd put it in my cart. I didn't care if I had a person that was going to get it or not. I'm buying the card. Because then I wanted to share that laugh out loud with somebody else. So that was a way for me to get a break, get away from the kids, get out of the house, and get my brain on straight, So that's one strategy. If you want to do that, you can just escape to the grocery store and give your brain a break. Okay, another category of people in their 40s is they might be not only raising teenagers or young adults, but they could have aging parents. I touched on that just a little bit. That's a very stress-filled season of life. And many, many, many of us have to go through that. And those are not roads that you get to pick and choose oftentimes. It's just there it is, and you have to take up your cross and bear it, so to speak. I myself went through that. I went through, my mother passed away when I was young. I was in my 20s when my mom died of a terrible cancer. And so I experienced a lot of what my friends now are experiencing, but way earlier in life. And then my father just passed away in December this past year. But I wanted to share this little story with you about my bestie, Catherine, who's here on our call. She just lost her dad this past May, and he passed away during the shutdown. The hospitals would not allow patients to have family people, in there with them. And then the funeral home would not allow more than 10 people to be there at the funeral. And some of you may have experienced that during the shutdown, or maybe you know people who have experienced it. That is a horrible thing for families to go through. It is so tough to grieve the loss of a parent. That's one. So you've got one layer, right, of stress. Then you add to that a pandemic. Okay, and all the things that happen. You can't go into the hospital. It's COVID. You can't do this. You can't do that. And then you add to that the funeral, and you can't grieve like we're used to grieving. You can't shake a hand. You can't give a hug. You can't cry together and weep together like human beings. Like we can't be in a room together. I mean, it's frustrating. So one of the things I shared with my friend when she seemed like she was pretty down, and I've done this over the years, I said, find something that'll make you laugh to give your brain a break. And so one of the things that she's a big fan of is the old-fashioned show. It's called All in the Family with Archie Bunker. Today, that show wouldn't even be on TV. I don't know if you've seen it lately, but if you watch it now, you'd go, oh, wow, I can't believe that they said that. But I encouraged her to give herself permission to be in the moment, to grieve, to receive this stress. Because I'm gonna tell you what, if you like check out and you go watch Archie Bunker for a half an hour, the world's not gonna fall apart, and you're gonna just be able to escape. And a lot of times I do it myself. A lot of times my escape will be food. I want instant gratification. And so I have struggled with emotional eating and yo-yo up and down weight for most of my adult life, because I just gravitate toward cheesecake or peanut butter and jelly or whatever that's going to give me a relief. I'm here to tell you today that if you turn to comedy instead of some of these other things like food, sex, drugs, alcohol is what sometimes people will turn to. Comedy is such a healthy way to have a break, to give your brain a break, to reduce stress. And there's no calories in it at all. It's like celery, right? You consume it and you actually lose a pound or two because you're laughing. Okay, so becoming a humor consumer. I already said that. Okay, think of comedy. Think of comedy as a glass of water for a marathon runner. Think about it. Any of you marathon runners? I'm not. I don't run. Unless I'm running away from something that's chasing me, I'm not gonna run. But I've watched marathon runners on TV, and they have these stations set up where they can grab a glass of water, right? And they can chug down that glass of water to give them what they need so that they can keep on going. So comedy can do that for people. It can just give your brain a break so that you can keep on going. Another season of life that people might need to reduce stress and can use comedy is with like a midlife crisis, an identity crisis. When I turned 40, that's when I got motivated to write my book. My husband actually was behind it, and he said, here's a laptop. Our youngest went to kindergarten that year. So for the first time in my married life, I had 7 hours in a row to string together to do whatever I wanted. All the boys were in school. I said, I'm writing my book. And I started out writing a fiction novel. I thought I was going to be the next J.K. Rowling because she was popular back then. And I was like, I got ideas. I have some creativity. That didn't work out. It's hard. It's hard to write fiction. So then my friend said, your life is stranger than fiction. So she encouraged me to write my book. I'm going to just tell you a little bit, a quick story about this book. So the first chapter is about our 21 trips to the emergency room. 21. We've been questioned, not investigated. And there's a big difference. And there are a lot of emergency rooms within a half an hour of our home. So we were at one period of time, we would be like, well, where did we go last week? We can't go there again. And we would just switch it up and go to different emergency rooms, which, whenever they found out that we had 5 boys, they would be like, oh, we get it. So that's chapter 1. There's a chapter here about our holiday mishaps And one time we tried to go through a car wash with our Christmas tree on top of the car. And so that's in here. Here's a picture of that. It's our minivan with a blue spruce on top of the car. I'm not going to give away the ending in case you win the book, and then you can read what happened. And then the last chapter just points the reader to what's really important in life, and I share faith with the reader. So that's how I organized my book. Was I brought the reader through all these crazy stories of comedy and then perspective. In our case, we had our middle son had an illness that when you have a sudden diagnosis where it's kind of serious, doesn't everything kind of get put on the back burner? And aren't you suddenly, you don't care about, we had chocolate syrup all over the carpet. My son drew on my minivan with rocks. They pole vaulted in the pool and broke it, and the water was all over the yard. All of that stuff doesn't matter, though, when you have something that's more serious than that, that's facing you, in the moment. So that's my book. Okay, so that was my show and tell. Another category of stress is career stress, job stress, right? Especially for moms. I feel so bad for moms right now. Moms with young families. I know some people from my church, they not only have been shut down from their career, and they're working from home, but they're also schooling the kids from home. So everything, mom is doing everything, and she's doing it all from this little house, with all these people. That creates stress. That mom needs a break. That person needs self-care. She needs to make sure that she's not going to lose it. So she's got to think, how can I make myself laugh out loud? How can I find things that are funny, that will relate to me, that I can laugh out loud? I have a sister-in-law who is an ICU nurse in Chicago. And she tells me some stories that I was like, oh my gosh, I could never be a nurse. If I was holding somebody's life in my hands, trust me, I would drop it. It would fall to the floor, and they'd have to give that talk like, we did everything we could, but Tracy dropped the heart. It's slippery. Hearts are slippery. We didn't know. Down it went. Regardless of your career, some of you said you're pastors or you work for a nonprofit, so you might be involved in donor relations or serving people who are underserved. Regardless of what you do, give yourself permission to schedule your own time to laugh. And I mean, get out your calendar like you have an appointment with Candace and schedule 30 minutes for you, Leah, for you, Penny, for you, Catherine, for you, Di, to laugh out loud. Nobody else. Because there's what I know about pastors, ministers, nonprofit people. You're givers. You're always giving. You give. Women, we're givers. Mothers, the very birth experience is a giving experience, right? We are givers. So you have got to give yourself permission to laugh out loud. And schedule it on your calendar like it's an important meeting with an actual person so that you commit to it. And you're going to love this. You're going to love doing this. Now, I'm going to say you can do what you want, like once a week, maybe, if you want to do it that way, 30 minutes once a week. Or maybe you want to do it kind of like exercise, right? 3 to 5 times a week, 30 minutes at a shot. Maybe however you want to do it. I think that's what you need to do. Financial stress is another season of time in which we've been there. 5 boys are expensive. All they do is eat and break things. And then they went to college and we're expected to pay for that. Financial stress is tough. Here's a little saying that we say around here. It's always better to want something that you don't have than to have something that you don't want. So debt, mortgages, puppies, marriages, keep that in mind. It's always better to want something that you don't have than to have something that you don't want. I alluded to earlier about Norman Cousins and pain and how he had that connective tissue disorder, almost like a severe arthritis. He was always in pain. This girl right here, I do not like pain. If I'm in pain, you're gonna know I'm in pain. You're gonna know, you're gonna know, you're gonna know. Tracy's in pain, make it stop. And I've had 5 kids, and some of my doctors, they think, oh, you should have a higher pain tolerance. You did have 5 children. I said, yeah, but not out of my shoulder. So I just had rotator cuff repair. That hurts. That hurts really bad, and it hurts for a long time. So I'm now 6 weeks post-op, and the pain is just now starting to calm down. But I was thinking about Norman Cousins and doing that thing, 10 minutes of laughing out loud. For me, the comedian, I need to laugh out loud, right? I can't just be constantly giving it either. So I had that shoulder pain, and so I had to become like a humor consumer. In my marriage, I've been married now 31 years in a row, same guy. And I don't fuss too much about the TV. He's in charge of the remote. We've only had one TV this whole time, all these 31 years. I'm not really a big consumer of TV, but when I was in pain, this just happened like 2 weeks ago. I was in so much pain with my shoulder, and I was trying to wean myself off of the prescription pain medication because I don't want to have that problem now too. So I was trying to get to 8 o'clock, and I had maybe 2 hours to go, and I wanted to watch comedy. Well, my husband had on TV vintage 80s heavy metal. And I'm like, oh no, this is not going to happen with vintage 80s heavy metal. We're not watching that on TV. We're watching something funny. We need funny right now. So physical pain, definitely you need to factor in some comedy. So let's talk about depression for just a minute, because a lot of people who are in nonprofit organizations deal with people who are going through depression. Actually, every occupation deals with it. We're just not very open about it. I myself am not a counselor. I'm not a trained medical person, but I am one who has suffered from depression. I actually went on an antidepressant at certain times in life, and my physician goes to my church. And the first time I went into his office for antidepressant, he walked in the door and he goes, wow, with those 5 kids, I thought I would have seen you a long time ago. Like, shut up and give me the medicine. Here's what I'm gonna tell you about depression. With depression, I definitely tell my audience, get professional help first. That's number 1. Talk to your doctor. I agree with all these, eat a healthy diet, exercise. I agree with that. I agree with whatever, stay away from things that could cause inflammation in the body, things that could cause allergy. I agree with all that. But if somebody's depressed, you get to a doctor and you talk to that professional doctor and you get a recommendation from that person and you follow that. Because you can't mess around with depression. It's not just gonna poof, go away. You have got to get help, and there's a lot of help out there. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it. Let's see, after depression. So here's a recap. The recap in Who Needs Humor is everybody, right? But I just gave you some examples of seasons of time when people could probably use a little extra dose of humor. And I'm trying to encourage you, the givers, to schedule for yourself your own time to plan humor. So now we're gonna, the next little bit, because we've got like 15 minutes left. The next little bit, we're gonna try to figure out what's funny. What's funny? Because I'm gonna tell you the truth. What's funny to one person is not funny to the next person. I have been there and done that. Because I can tell jokes to a whole audience, and some people, they'll get it and they'll laugh. Other people, they'll just be stone cold silent. But then at the end of the show, they'll come up and go, that was so funny. So everybody responds differently. So to help you find out what's funny to you is just do your own test. Your reaction will give you the answer. Watch sitcoms, listen to podcasts, watch funny TV shows, movies, social media, do the greeting card thing. Another one is Pandora, if you're familiar with that app. If you go into Pandora and open it up, you can put in clean comedy and you can just discover. I have discovered all kinds of comedians on Pandora that I listen to on the regular basis now, and I love them. That's just my preference. I don't like the blue humor or, kind of like anything goes comedy. That doesn't make me laugh. So I put in clean comedy and all kinds of things come up. It's great. So we covered when people think things are funny. We talked about children and how they sort of see everyday life as funny. But the time for you, the time is now. I really think that the time is now for you to get out your schedule, get out your calendar, and make this a priority. Attend some live comedy events. I wish that I could bring you all to my Life Happens Laugh Anyway comedy show. It's so much fun. It's a rocking good time. Go on YouTube. You can find my stuff on YouTube. I have a YouTube channel. It's Tracy DeGraff on YouTube. Just test some things out. A couple of sitcoms. I looked up like some popular sitcoms like I don't know why didn't I print that? I thought I had that here. Hold on, let me look. Of course, you remember Friends and things like that. Seinfeld, Friends. Last Man Standing is one that comes to my mind. That one's a pretty funny one with Tim Allen. Just Google popular sitcoms and then test them out. Try them. See if they resonate with you and see if they make you laugh. And then I would encourage you to become a humor consumer. Go out and get with some friends and laugh together. Another thing that will help you with your sense of humor is to not take life so seriously. One way that you can do that is think to yourself, will this matter in 100 years? Will it matter in 50 years? Will it matter in 25 years? Will this matter in 12 years? I'm telling you what, if you do that, it almost means like nothing matters, seriously, because there's so few things that really, really matter that we get so uptight about. So if you're taking things a little too seriously and you just go run down that litany of math, will this matter in 100 years? I guarantee you it's not going to matter in 100 years. Will it matter in 50? Will it matter in 25? Will it matter in 12? Will it matter in 6? That'll just help you get perspective. Let's see. Don't be so defensive. That's another one. Even if you're right, it doesn't matter if everybody knows you're right. The fact that you're right or the fact that you're wrong isn't really gonna matter. So we don't have to be so defensive. The truth always finds a way. It always bubbles up. One thing that I'm working on, I'm the baby of my family, so I'm ultra sensitive. I'm like, I have a whole thing with birth order, and I just think that babies of the family are always babies. That's me. I'm always like, man, it hurts, make it stop. So don't take life so seriously. Don't be so defensive. And then the last note I have on here is step away from negativity. Being negative, it can kill you. That kind of stress can kill you. I mean, I know someone in my life who is very, very negative and involved in things where the negativity is constantly around them. And there's never like a break from it. It's all gloom and doom. And that's a tough way to be. That's a tough row to hoe and find anything funny. And I'm not saying that that's how you guys are, but I mean, there's probably been different seasons of my life when I have experienced that, when it's harder. Let's just say that it might be harder to stay positive. One thing that I do at the end of every day is write a thankful list of 10 things that I'm grateful for. That has helped me to avoid negativity. And it came out of need. Catherine and I were best friends, and we used to walk the neighborhood at night. And this was in 2011. We were both going through seasons of tough times. Financially, it was tough for our family. We had the recession, the great one, the Great Recession. I don't know if you remember that, but that was rough. And I was depressed. And I had gone to see my doctor. I was taking antidepressant, but I was walking with my friend, and I said, you know what? At the end of the night, I'm going to text you 10 things that I'm grateful for. Because David Letterman was on back then, and he used to do the top 10 countdown. And I said to her, I said, I think we need to find 10 things at least that we can be grateful for. So we did that at the end of the night. I sent her 10 things and she sent me 10 things. That was in 2011. Today, we still do it. We still do it. I don't think we will ever stop. It's 2020. That's 9 years ago, right? Yeah. And we've added 3 statements at the end of those 10 things. And the 3 statements are, I know. Remember when Oprah used to do that? I know something good, whatever. So I know something that you can know, right? You know this is the truth. An I can statement, because we cannot control all this stuff out there, right? 2020 has taught us that. You had plans. I had hopes, dreams. I know, fill in the blank. I can, fill in the blank. And then finally, I'm excited. I know, I can, I'm excited. If you did that, that would change your life, because that's what it did for us. That's why we still do it. We didn't set out in 2011 to say, hey, I think we should send a top 10 thankful list to each other for the rest of our lives. We didn't set out to that. I'm not very consistent. I only brush my teeth every day because I have to. But now that we've done it, right? I know Catherine agrees with me because I can see her smiling. We have been changed as a result of that. Because you think about all the life that has happened from 2011 to 2020, right? If you can look back on a bad day and find 10 things that you're grateful for, and they don't have to be like super crazy things. Like I'll share with you, I'll look at my text from last night. I wasn't planning on doing this, but here it is. Awesome day, just walking around with my BFF, because we walked around town and then we went and got pedicures. I put that on there. The massage chair that we sat in, that was top notch. We got wine for free at the pedicure place. Then we walked over to the coffee shop and we got some coffee. I put our new podcast, because my bestie and I are going to start a podcast. My feet look way better because I had that hard, crusty old lady heels going, and the poor young lady that had to chisel that away. I felt bad for her. I did give her a nice big tip because the poor thing, she'll be traumatized. Technology, I can learn stuff. And then I put, I know that my feet are amazing. I can take great care of them, and I'm excited to do that. That'll change your life if you do it consistently. So I hope that you have enjoyed this time. We have a few minutes for any questions if you have any. But just to give you another last shot of a recap, become a humor consumer. Get out your schedule and at least schedule one 30-minute session for yourself to sort of discover what kind of comedy you like, and just schedule it in so that you can just have fun and laugh. Find your way. Podcast, YouTube, TikTok, whatever you got, you'll find it.